New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Live from a secure concrete bunker somewhere in Ohio, New Thought Media Network presents Pastor Michael Mangus with Friday's Fireside Chat, spiritual conversation for today. Here he is from the secret radio room, surrounded by thousands of watts, Pastor Michael Mangus.
All right, that's a thousand's cheer. A very pleasant good evening to you across the United States and also around the world. It is time once again for another fun-filled throwback and, yes, guaranteed exciting edition of the Fireside Chat here on your New Thought Media Network. I am Reverend Michael Mangus, talking to you this evening from the super secure concrete bunker in the top secret radio room, surrounded by thousands, and I mean thousands of watts. That is so top secret that only my producer, Diego Reyes, only he knows where the location of the super secret concrete bunker is located. No one else, especially our chief inspirational officer, the Reverend Robert Brzezinski, especially him, does not know where the top secret concrete bunker is located, and we are going to keep it that way. Well, good to have you along this evening. We are pre-recording our program this evening. So we will, anybody who is chatting this evening, again, that we'll go ahead and comment next week. But if you'd like to send me an email this week, that would be absolutely wonderful. And pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com, pastormichaelmangus@gmail.com. So the purpose of our weekly conversation is to throw a couple of logs on the fire, go get your cocoa or your hot beverage, and let's talk about contemporary issues from a New Thought perspective. And again, you do not have to agree with my viewpoints and opinions. They are my own, not those of the network or anyone else. But I want us all to have a new thought about what is going on in the world and our part in it. Again, that when we hear the word oneness, we hear the word oneness, but it doesn't include us. I have news for you, it does. So to use that oneness to bring about truly a world that does work for everyone. Our guest this evening, waiting in the wings, is someone that I see weekly at a continuing education class that I attend on Wednesday evenings, all the way from cold North Carolina in the 40s down there. We welcome to the show the Reverend Tom PITMAN, who runs a very unique focus ministry in our community of Centers for Spiritual Living. It's called Fully Free, Fully Alive. It coaches individuals in addiction recovery and also assists trauma survivors. So we'll be discussing this evening a very interesting post that I saw on the CSL Ministers Listserv about guilt in the 12-step program. Wow. It's going to be an interesting conversation this evening. The Reverend Tom PITMAN will be our guest in the second half of our program. All right, breaking news into the Spiritual News Network studios here. Punxsutawney Phil was held up by his handler to see for ceremonies on Groundhog Day on February 2nd in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. Phil predicted 6 more weeks of winter after seeing his shadow. Groundhog Day is a popular tradition here in the United States and also Canada where people await the sunrise and the groundhog's exit from his winter's den. And if Puxatawny Phil or Buckeye Chuck or any of the other groundhogs, if they see their shadow, they regard it as an omen of 6 more weeks of winter. And then they return to the den. Early spring arrives if the groundhog does not see his or her shadow, causing Phil to remain above ground. So, not to be outdone here, we also had our winter prediction from our New Thought Media Network staff mascot, Winston the Wonder Pig. Winston was smart. He stayed in on Thursday. His mommy and daddy, Mercedes, and my producer, Diego, told the Spiritual News Network that when they asked Winston about whether or not we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter, he just grunted and in pig language said, "Give me more snacks." Winston was wise. He stayed inside. So happy birthday also to Diego's wife, Mercedes. Yes, who looks more beautiful as time goes on. You tell her that. All right. Well, in the news this evening, first of all, parts of the Northeast U.S. are bracing today for possibly the coldest wind chills in the decade. Dangerously frigid temperatures with wind chill factors as cold as 50 degrees Fahrenheit below zero are set to wall up New England and surrounding regions beginning this morning. The Weather Prediction Service Center said earlier, all of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, also Rhode Island and Connecticut are under wind chill alerts. So for all of our friends in those areas, stay inside. Throw another log on the fire and keep tuned to the New Thought Media Network. We have wonderful programming all weekend long here. Also, news from the Ukraine. The U.S. is expected to announce a new Ukrainian security package worth approximately $2.2 billion. That includes long-range missiles for the first time. The type of missiles included in the package will effectively double the range of the Ukrainian weaponry, the officials say, reaching a range of approximately 90 miles. And this will be the first security package since the U.S. committed to providing Ukraine with advanced M1 Abrams tanks in January, a decision made in coordination with European countries providing German-made Leopard 2 tanks. The weapons will not arrive immediately in the Ukraine since they will not come directly out of U.S. inventories. So as the Ukrainian war is entering into its second year, I'm very pleased to announce that all of our members of Centers for Spiritual Living in the Ukraine are doing wonderfully well despite the conditions. We have a team of wonderful practitioners and ministers that meet with them almost daily online to support them. Our prayers for peace are still for that region and also for all the other troubled areas of the world. Now, you would think by this time that humans would have figured out that war is an extremely brutal and expensive way of handling conflicts. And if we really recognize the divinity of each other, as Ernest Holmes and other spiritual leaders have suggested, we would immediately cease war. So myself and others, we continue to pray and work for peace in our communities and also in the world. Finally, once again, this week, we buried another African-American man because of aggressive policing, this time in Memphis. Mourners from Vice President Kamala Harris to activist the Reverend Al Sharpton on Wednesday celebrated the life of Tyree Nichols, whose death at the hands of police in Memphis led to second-degree murder charges against the 5 officers. Harris said, on Wednesday, mothers around the world, when their babies are born, they pray to God when they hold that child that that body and that life will be safe for the rest of his life. Harris also said, and when we look at this situation, this is a family that has lost their son and their brother through an act of violence at the hands and at the feet of people who have been charged with keeping them safe. Nichols, who was 29, who is African American, was subdued and also continuously beaten after a traffic stop by Memphis police on January 7th. He died 3 days later. Harris told the Nichols family, "The people of our country mourn with you." The Reverend Al Sharpton, in a painfully familiar role, again, he's usually called in when we have one of these tragedies happen, he delivered an impassioned eulogy that paid tribute to Nichols' life and also served as a clarion call for justice. Sharpton said that he visited the Lorraine Motel, where the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis in 1968, and he called out the 5 Black former officers, the 5 Black police officers charged in Nichols' death. He said this, "There's nothing more insulting and offensive to those of us that fight to open doors, that you have walked through these doors and act like folks we had to fight for and had to fight through to get you through those doors. You did not get on the police department by yourself," Sharpton said. Sharpton also said, "If Nichols had been white, you wouldn't have beat him like that," referring to the 5 former officers. "You don't fight crime by becoming criminals yourself. That ain't the police. That's punks." Tyree Nichols' funeral service took place less than a week after the Friday evening's public release of footage of the brutal attack on him. Sharpton reflected on the family's loss as her son's name is added to a vast pantheon of Black people who died after encounters with the police. Sharpton said this family will never recover after this loss. Nichols has been described as a devoted son who has tattooed his mother's name on his arm, a loving father to a 4-year-old boy, and a free spirit with a passion for skateboarding and capturing sunsets on his camera. Public outrage over disturbing arrest video led to the firings or disciplinary actions against other public servants who were at the scene, including the firing of 3 Memphis Fire Department personnel. 2 sheriff's deputies have also been put on leave, and additionally, 2 more police officers have also been placed on leave. Up to 20 hours of video recordings have not been released. Shelby County District Attorney Stephen Mulroy told CNN the Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer on Wednesday. The audio from the recordings is probably more useful in some cases than what the video showed. He did not specify on what can be heard on the recordings, which he said included sound captured after the beating took place. The release of that footage will be determined by city officials, he also added. The prosecutor also said and has asked the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to expedite its investigation into the other emergency responders, those beside the 5 already indicted, to see whether any charges are warranted for them. And these people include the officers who filed the paperwork, he said. And on Wednesday, there was one song that was performed at the end of the service. It was the gospel version of Sam Cooke's "A Change Is Gonna Come." I stand behind my African American brothers and sisters in calling for an end to racism in all forms. Now, the situation, again, is very unique in that most of the officers involved were African American also. And there has also been calls for the one white officer involved to be fired instead of being put on leave. So that's why I have said on this broadcast over and over again that we need police reform, not police defunding. It is something about the fraternity, the law enforcement environment, and also the training that causes police of all races to exhibit this kind of behavior on a traffic stop. And I'm speaking to you from Akron, Ohio, where we are still saddened by the death last summer of Trayvon Martin. Here in Akron, the voters have stepped up. They have called for a citizens review panel to go over complaints of police brutality. And again, from what I understand, on the former board that they had, former civil review board that they had on the desk over 200 complaints against the Akron Police Department in the past few years. So this has been an ongoing process here in Akron. And we have had an issue here in Akron of officers retiring or quitting because of the pressure put on them by the events of last summer. And they're also having a problem with recruiting new officers. The call here is for a colorless law enforcement that honors all and still maintains civility. Listen, I acknowledge the difficult jobs that our men and women in blue have. I've known many of them over the years, including one who has reached the high mark here in Akron of lieutenant and who's now retired. Their job is a tough one. And the brutality by some officers, not all of them, but some, makes the police's job even tougher. So that's why I and other spiritual leaders are calling for more psychological testing. We're calling for better training and also increased salaries for our law enforcement officers. They are underpaid for the tough job that they have to do out there. And also Black history needs more of a focus year round than 1 month out of the year, of which we are starting, or which we have started on Wednesday. All right, Diego, I think I set a record. 19 minutes and 30 seconds for the news. Hey, show Tom what you do when I go over 20 minutes. He takes me completely out of the shot, Tom. Oh, we have fun here on the Friday evening fireside chat here on your New Thought Media Network. I am Reverend Michael Mangus, and I am broadcasting from the super secret concrete bunker here in Akron, Ohio. Let's have a few announcements, and then we'll have our special guest this evening, recovery and trauma expert, the Reverend Tom Pittman, will be with us here in a few moments. Yours truly is parking himself at Summit CSL. For more information, please go to summitcsl.org. There and only there, you will find information about our wonderful Sunday gathering online at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific time. Grab your cup of coffee, your tea, your espresso, your boba tea, whatever wakes you up in the morning, and please join us. We do have one of the best services, I do believe, in New Thought. And this Sunday, we have a very special day. It's our 23rd anniversary of our center. And we are so honored to have as our special guest from California via Zoom, the Reverend Dr. Brian Graham will be our very special guest. So go on summitcsl.org for more information about how to join our Zoom call. Our service is also simulcast on the Summit Spiritual Center of Akron Facebook page and also our Facebook page, and also the YouTube channel of New Thought Media Network. We do have past broadcasts of myself and the Fireside Chat, and also when I am doing prayer here on the New Thought Media Network. We have so many wonderful things to tell you about what's going on here at NT Media. We have wonderful programmings coming up. We have a major change that we will tell you about here in the next several months. And we have an opportunity here through this network to reach the world with this positive, affirmative spirituality. Now is our time. We have the means of doing it now. So if you could, please go to ntmedia.org and also check out our donate page. There you can either give a very generous one-time gift, or you can do like I do and become a monthly partner. Sustaining donors here really make a huge difference, because what happens is that's the money that we set budgets on. That's the money that we pay salaries out of. That's the money that, again, that we buy equipment and we pay for the bandwidth and all the other things that we have to do here to keep this network on the air. So you can partner with us. You can do that again through your prayer. Keep us in prayer every day, and also through your donations. So again, ntmedia.org/donate. Okay, time for a break, and then we'll be back with the Reverend Tom Pittman. This is the Friday Evening Fireside Chat here on your New Thought Media Network.
You will enjoy psychic entertainer Rick Finbow.
I'm going to give you a general reading first.
He's been helping people realize their potential for over 40 years, offering one-to-one and group sessions as well as keynote performances around the world.
I use tarot cards to help me focus my intuition.
Over 1,800 performances at the MGM Grand Las Vegas. Witness a combination of magic, mysticism, astrology, numerology, and tarot. Rick's shows are rich in demonstrations of ESP and psychic abilities, leaving you with a feeling of wonder and awe.
But there's a lot of things that are happening right now in the world that are amazing.
You just might learn a little about yourself during his show, too.
A new relationship within ourselves.
20 to 90-minute performances are available depending on the venue.
Focusing on what we want.
Psychic entertainer Rick Finbow.
And then the universe will give you more of it. And more of it.
For details and booking, go to psychicrick.com.
The views and opinions expressed by Pastor Michael Mangus are generally right. However, they are his own and do not reflect the views and opinions of New Thought Media Network, Centers for Spiritual Living, or any other person living or dead. As they say in the 12-Step Recovery Program, take what you like and leave the rest. Here again is Pastor Michael.
And it is a real honor this evening to have, all the way from North Carolina, the Reverend Tom Pittman, who is a minister of religious science licensed by Centers for Spiritual Living. He has been a student of New Thought since the age of 14. He came to Science of Mind in July of 2009 and became first a licensed spiritual practitioner, and then entered ministerial school while serving at the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living in Raleigh, North Carolina. Before entering full-time ministry, Tom served as the vice president and corporate counsel for a sustained energy company. He also served as a special deputy attorney general with the North Carolina Department of Justice as the attorney supervisor of corrections. and also as a volunteer with the North Carolina Lawyers Assistance Program. He is a former colonel in the United States Marine Corps, having retired from the Staff Judge Advocate's Office of the United States Marine Corps. He received his Bachelor of Science degree from the United States Naval Academy and Masters of Science in Administration from Pepperdine, and also his Juris Doctorate from Wake Forest University School of Law. And he's also a graduate of Holmes Institute, receiving his Master of Arts in Consciousness Studies, all the way again from North Carolina, speaking on his wonderful ministry, the Reverend Tom Pittman. Tom, welcome to the program this evening.
Reverend Michael, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I am very grateful to the New Thought Media Network for having me. I noticed that the advertisement was for a psychic entertainer, and by the time you get, I will say that what I'm going to say is my opinion and my thoughts and no one else's. And by the time I get done, you may have people saying, wait, today you had a psychotic present here following the psychic entertainer. So, where do we go?
We are open. We are open at the top here, Tom. So again, Rick is a wonderful man, and we're so glad to have him on our programs. But anyhow, Tom, I wanted to have you on because I saw this on the minister's listserv here about a month ago, and I wanted to get your comment on it. It was written by a colleague of ours and a friend of mine, Reverend Harriet Hawkins, who wrote this. She said, I was asked this question by a member of my community who's in the 12-step program, and I turned to my 12-step colleagues for your wisdom. And their question is this: it's a very hard place for me when Alcoholics Anonymous says that we need to share our deepest, darkest moments. I have already done that, and I feel that it keeps me, and again, I cannot speak for others, but it keeps me in this hamster wheel of pain, remorse, and regret. I am ready to be free and enjoy laughter, life, and fun again, and I don't see how the two can coexist. Now, Harriet wrote this, which again, it concerns me more than the comment. She says, I've heard this question before, and my sense is that the answer is different depending upon where someone is on their sobriety journey, but maybe not. And I would love to hear your wisdom and gratitude. Harriet, I'll give my opinion, and then I'll give you the floor, Reverend Tom Pittman.
Okay.
First of all, as someone who has been and who has worked with people in recovery and 12-step programs, my first response when I read this from Harriet was, who in the hell is sponsoring these people? Who in the hell is now I can use the word hell, by the way. That's a that's a term that they allow me to use, but who is sponsoring these people? The 12 steps, and I've led people through the 12 steps, not only as a sponsor, but also as a minister. But the 12 steps are a way that individuals may let go of guilt and shame in their addicted past. And again, the steps are meant to be a pathway to freedom and not stay in the shame of the past. And again, steps 4 through 9. Again, you may look those up on the internet if you're not familiar with them. Tom will probably give his comment about it here in a few moments. And your testimony or lead at a 12-step meeting does not have to include all of your 4th and 5th step. I've walked out of some of those meetings wanting to take a shower, okay? Because again, that they've told us all of their sexual exploits. They've told us everything they've stolen in their life, all the drugs that they've taken. And I'm going, interesting. But again, the steps, especially 4 through 9, are meant to be a way of confession, which is a time-honored tradition in religion of confessing one's sins to let them go, and also one of redemption. And the recovering individual needs to be reminded of this quote from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It says, and I wanted to put it in context. It says, if we are painstakingly about this phase of our development. We will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past. We'll shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. Counselor of Law and Spirituality, what say you?
Well, I think we need to look at a bigger picture a lot of times. I know we quite often say in 12-step meetings, you're no sicker than your secrets. And I got to tell you, I believe that's true. Now, one of the things that we quite often forget to tell people is what goes on at a 12-step meeting is supposed to stay in the 12-step meeting. It's not supposed to be talked about openly and with everybody. But I think one of the things that we get confused about, and particularly in this way that we practice this teaching that we love so dearly, and that is, we refer to it as science of mind, but it's the teachings of Ernest Holmes. You know, I remember one of my first full-time ministers said, you know, when you come to me and we go to class, you can tell your story one time and then you're never able to talk about it again because we're putting in the past in the past. And as we have gone on and as I've studied and I've learned, and I'm going, you know, you can't heal that old junk if you can't ever talk about it.
Right.
Now, one of the things that we do in recovery is we share our experience to provide strength and hope to others. You know, nobody walks into a 12-step meeting and thinks, oh, I'm here among friends. We're all got here together. They always walk in thinking, I'm the only one this has ever happened to. No matter what I say, it's going to be brand new. And in truth, that's never true. You walk in and there's almost no time where somebody in that meeting room has not had the exact experience you've had. And the importance of going back to some of that is to make you feel like you belong, to make you feel that you're a part of this and that there's hope for you. And we have to be able to give hope. And sometimes that's the only way to do it. And I do want to say too that we fall into a trap in recovery work. You know, my work is actually I call it a spiritual recovery ministry, and we fall into this trap of having very limited beliefs about things. Most people, and I'm going to generalize here, most people when they hear the word recovery, the first thing that comes to their mind is, oh, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, if you go to the greatest resource in the world of reference material, Wikipedia, and you put in the question, what are the names of all the 12-step groups? Or give me the names of all the 12 steps. It's going to spit out for you a laundry list of 75 or 80 names. And it will tell you right at the bottom, this is not an all-inclusive list. Now, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, was the genesis. That's where the 12 steps came from. But 12 steps is used, and those 12 steps with slight rewording to include the specific group, those 12 steps are used by many, many other types of behavior. And when we think of addiction, we don't want to get locked into alcohol and substances as the only ones. You know, any type of compulsive and addictive thought pattern and behavior with its continuity, with the way it holds on to you, that is the perfect reason to have a 12-step group. Now, I personally have been a member of 12 steps since October of 2001. and it's not for alcohol, and it's not for drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a member of Emotions Anonymous, and I'm a member of Codependence Anonymous. And I have to tread carefully as I go about my week to deal with things. You know, when I listen to the news, and I have to keep reminding myself what's happening on the media, what is being presented to me and the general public is not there to inform me.
Right.
It's there to incite me,
Yes.
to outrage me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to spur me to action. If I'm not careful, I can jump out there and I can violate all my codependency teachings and principles by jumping out there and telling other people how they need to live, by golly. And you need to do it this way. And I can fix you right here, right now, if you just do what I say. Okay?
That doesn't work very well, Tom. I've tried that.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. But, you know, going back to one of your news items, you were talking about the police departments. Police,
yes.
Law enforcement in general is a paramilitary organization. Having spent a lot of time in the military, I can tell you that it's set up on a hierarchy, and you, by golly, better follow the orders of the people above you or else.
Right.
And so there's those kind of things that go into that we don't necessarily have everywhere. I'm not going to say nowhere, but everywhere in typical civilian life, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the key teachings in recovery is you and only you are responsible for your own recovery. And it has to be a primary concern of yours every single day. That's the idea of the one day at a time. Every day, if your addiction is alcohol, every day you have to make the decision that I'm going to stay sober today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's that idea that you are responsible for your own recovery. So I listen to the news and I have to be careful. Now, I also know from the other flip side of me over here at Emotions Anonymous that I spent a great deal of my life not realizing I had emotions. I subjugated everything. I mean, I blocked the world. I could be a cruel, cruel, cruel person because I didn't allow myself to feel. And that was one of the big healing things that I had to do, was to learn how to not only experience emotions, but experience them in a safe and healthy manner, safe and healthy to myself and safe and healthy to others. So as I have these things happen to me, I have to be very careful how I treat them. And I also have to be very careful that I teach others to do the same.
Yes.
I can't teach those things without getting into some of my past.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how much detail I have to include may be dictated by where I am. It may be dictated by the meeting I'm in. If I'm sponsoring somebody and I'm sharing with a sponsee, then I'll include maybe more detail than I would include in an open meeting. And you also have to take into account who's in that meeting.
Yes.
If I'm there and it's a group of old timers and that's all that's there, I can let a little more detail hang out there. But if I've got a newbie in there who's in there for their first meeting and they're just hanging on by their fingernails, I don't want to go play a laundry list of how terrible and rotten it is and it was and everything for that person, because they may go, oh my God, I'm around a bunch of crazy people and they're out of here and back to their addiction. So,
well, they are, Tom.
They are. Absolutely. We're all crazy or we wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So I think it has to be tempered a good deal, Mike. I really don't think you can get by without going through some of it, but you shouldn't have to share it every single meeting.
Well, and so, I mean, that was my concern when I read this. I'm going, first of all, is that for those who are not in addiction recovery or those who have not studied it is, especially our ministers in New Thought. And again, we have, and you'll probably bring up, Tom, we have a long history in 12-step recovery. But my concern is that the use of the steps were not pointed out to this individual, is that somehow or another that they got a mixed message about the 12 steps, and that the reason that we confess them to God, to ourselves, and to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs, is to release them and let them go so that we can live a life of serenity. And so that was my concern here. And I said, who is sponsoring these people? And that I'm glad that Harriet put this up there. I think she got some really good responses from other ministers who do work with recovering individuals. But that, again, the steps are meant to be a place where, again, that we can really just, again, get honest with someone else besides ourselves and besides God, to really get real with someone. And that I think that has to be tempered with, again, going to meetings and thinking that I have to tell my fourth and fifth step over again. And you don't. I don't think it's very helpful for the individual, and I don't think it's very helpful for the other people in recovery.
No, I agree with you. We have and that's one of the reasons why I think it's so helpful, the work that we do. Some people call it their shadow work, but the idea of going through and healing ourselves, healing our limiting beliefs. So much of what we do is that teach people to do that. And I'm glad you brought up the fact of the history that Science of Mind has with recovery. I know that Bill Wilson, of course, was very, very close to Reverend Emmett Fox.
Yes.
And a lot of people aren't aware, they think, oh, Ernest Holmes, he was a religious scientist. No, Ernest Holmes was a divine scientist, the same as Emmett Fox.
Yes.
And Emmett Fox introduced Bill Wilson to Ernest Holmes, and Bill Wilson traveled across the country to meet Ernest Holmes. Now, I don't mean to say I'm going to take exception with Ernest Holmes, but the one place I don't go in my work is and you brought this up in your opening comments, so I did want to address it. I never, ever go to a person, and particularly somebody with alcohol or chemical addiction, and say to them, I can heal you, or that you are cured. Ernest Holmes believed that healing alcoholic addiction, healing chemical addiction was no different than any other illness, no different than any other disease. And I'm not going to disagree with him. I'm just going to say, I'm not going to go against the 12-step teaching and say I can cure you of it. So yeah, I agree. And I had this conversation when I was going through practitioner training, because I was had been a volunteer for 10 or 12 years, when people had to go visit these groups. And they go, why are they saying I'm Joe, I'm an alcoholic? And I'm going, well, he probably should say I'm Joe, and if he's working the 12 steps, I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Yes.
But I don't know that I can ever say you're a former alcoholic, or that you are no longer an alcoholic, without also saying you are cured of it.
Yes.
And I don't know that that is in fact the case, but it bothers me, and it does really bother me still when I go to meetings and somebody says, hi, I'm a codependent. Hi, I'm a cokehead or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going, if you're working the 12 steps, are you really, or are you recovering?
Yes.
And I think this precise language is very important. We need to address that. But we also need to have our practitioners, our ministers have a full understanding of it as well.
And I think that we need to probably cover that a lot more in our training of ministers and practitioners. If you're wondering what you've stumbled onto this evening, hello there. This is a Friday evening fireside chat here on your New Thought Media Network. I am Reverend Michael, and I'm joined this evening all the way from North Carolina, the Reverend Tom PITMAN, who is explaining to us his wonderful ministry down there among people in recovery and also trauma survivors. So it's a real honor to have Tom with us this evening. When you were talking about the writings of Holmes, I was thinking back to a book called Just for Today. I don't know if you've read that or not, but it gave a pretty good definition of what Holmes thought about being not cured, but he says, he said healing from alcoholism means you being off all alcohol a day at a time. He was real clear about that in the writing. So he was not that you can be cured and go back there and have another drink again, but that the cure was, and he was very impressed, especially in the Los Angeles area, with the work that AA was doing there. I mean, he was very supportive of the work that they were doing around his area. So I think, again, it goes back to, that's my definition of recovery too. It's not going back, but it's the whole idea of one day at a time that we are going to refrain from, and that whatever drove us to the addictive substance, that what we're going to do is, instead of that, is we are going to work on ourselves, not only through the 12 steps, but also to do whatever is necessary to keep sober or abstinent for the day. So I think that has that has a lot to do with it. No, I personally, the cure is being, now the big book, I got up this article, Tom, and I just, wonderful article from Medium Magazine. It says recovered or recovering. And it says here, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous said really quite clear when it says the word recovered. It means, again, that we are off all alcohol one day at a time, that we are recovered. It doesn't mean that we're cured. It says the word recovered is used 16 times in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and 4 times in the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, another book that's used in AA. And again, great article. Please go see it. And again, it goes through the whole arguments of, again, recovering, recovered, and also the I am. So how do you feel when people go to meetings and they say, I am an alcoholic, and have 10 years of recovery underneath their belt?
I still don't appreciate them saying I am an alcoholic. I think they need to really honor themselves, and I think it is honoring themselves. It's not for me. Honor themselves and all the work they've done by saying I am a recovering alcoholic, or if they wish to say recovered alcoholic, that's fine. Keep in mind one thing though on the language. When Dr. Holmes first started out, he took the more hard line, you can be cured approach, because remember, he started in the 20s.
Yes.
And Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob didn't start until the 30s. And it was when they all mixed together, and he said, oh, well, this is what I really mean by that. So he quit using the word cured.
Yes.
He did. So, I don't think we're ever cured of it. We're not cured of our addictive behaviors. But what we do is exactly what he said about being recovered is we don't use, and it doesn't have to be, again, a substance or alcohol. We don't use those behaviors that we used before. And in Science of Mind, we are going back and healing ourselves of them. Just like somebody pushing our buttons, though, there's times my buttons are going to be pushed, and damn if I'm not going to get to be angry. Now I can be, as recovering, or whatever I want to say with emotions, and it's a reaction. And I understand the theory behind it. It's a choice. I can choose to react differently, but my knee jerk sometimes is just, by golly, I'm going to get angry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how I choose to act from that point on, I may be able to go back and use both the teachings of science of mind and the teachings of recovery and keep myself from reacting the way I used to. But it doesn't mean I didn't get triggered.
Yeah.
But we're healing that. We're
Yeah,
healing every day.
We're talking with Reverend Tom Pittman from North Carolina, who has a wonderful ministry down there, working with people in recovery, 12-step recovery, and also individuals, again, through trauma, who have survived trauma. Tom, in your opinion, how many people in 12-step programs have trauma issues?
Quite a few.
Okay.
And it depends on whether you use the old definitions of trauma or you use a newer definition of trauma as to how many. The old definitions had to do with what happened to you and how severe it was. The new definition is more in line with trauma is not what happened to you, it's what happens inside you when something happens to you. And as we look at it that way, it even expands that. And I know we've got to wrap up, so
we'll have you back, Tom. Go ahead.
I do want to throw one quick thing out. There was a study, I found it when I took the course on research methodology in ministerial school. I found this study and I needed it to show the instructor so he could see that this was a viable route of working. And it said 10% of the people in the United States, 10% of the total population now, it didn't exclude women and children or younger than a certain age, 10% of the population are engaged or have been engaged in some form of recovery. And another 10% need to be. Now, that's my market audience. And if you look at it, at our last census, 2020 census, we were 330 million people. That means there's 33 million people in this country that are engaged in some form of a recovery or 12-step group, and another 33 million that need to be. And a good portion of it has to do with trauma. And the most damaging thing is what we're finding is with the high incidence of suicide, there has been trauma, and the solution to handling it was to numb our senses through alcohol and drugs. So many of the people coming into 12 steps are coming from the pain of trauma.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'll leave you there.
Yeah, we're almost done here, Tom. And again, we really appreciate your time to come on the program. So your ministry is fully free, fully alive. Why did you go that route instead of taking the traditional route of taking a church or a center?
I was one of the people who considered suicide when I got into recovery. And recovery saved my life. And I became a volunteer as well as a sponsor. And was working with this field a number of years before I went to ministerial school, before I came to Science of Mind. And it's a rewarding field. There is nothing in the world more rewarding to me than being able to help somebody, help them have a fulfilling life, realize who they really are and live authentically and know the joy of life. It's actually living the old starfish thrower story. Yes. I can't heal them all, but I can help heal this one or help this one heal themselves. So it's an exciting way to live my life. It's a gift I can give back.
Well, how wonderful. And again, getting back to the whole involvement of New Thought, that the first big book that was read in meetings was the book called The Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox. That was the first book. And that book is on display at Dr. Bob's house, Dr. Bob Smith's house here, which is a museum here in Akron, Ohio. Tom, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
I do most of them, get most of my folks through referrals, but they can either email me at pitmantj@hotmail.com or call me at 919-271-4805. I'm going to get them in the right order there. And I'll be happy to talk with them.
Well, I think too that, again, that especially when you're going and you say, I'm going to need some help here. I think one of the nice things about maybe calling you, Tom, is again that you'll, especially if you are coming from a New Thought background, is you'll respect that, and you'll allow them. Then you'll use those tools that they already have to heal the rest of their lives. Tom Pittman, it's been a real honor. Thank you very much. I always love seeing you every single week at our Wednesday evening gathering. And again, many blessings to you and to all the people that you helped down there in North Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's Reverend Tom Pittman. His wonderful ministry is called Fully Free, Fully Alive. And you may get in contact with him also if you would like more information about his ministry. We got to go. Boy, an hour flies by fast when you're having fun. Again, consider partnering with us here at NT Media. Again, we have opportunities here to take this message around the world. And through those open doors, sometimes all we need is a little financial backing. So go to ntmedia.org/donate. Again, give a very generous one-time gift, or again, be a monthly partner. Again, either way, it really helps us get the message out there. On behalf of myself and also Reverend Tom Pittman and my producer, Diego Reyes, I am Reverend Michael Mangus, and I'm going to wish you a wonderful week.
Thanks for joining us this evening for Friday's Fireside Chat with Pastor Michael Mangus. Join us again next week at 8 Eastern, 6 Mountain for more spiritual conversations for today. For more information and replays of past shows, please visit the New Thought Radio and Media Network's Facebook page. Until next week, may God bless you richly and abundantly.